Had a lot of volunteers work on the event here tonight and over the last few weeks. And in particular, I'd like to thank Siobhan Snitker, who's been doing our social media, our website. Siobhan, thank you very, very much. Okay, Smudged Cat Games, David Johnston.
So following on from the 5-minute talk, I think my half-hour talk is going to take 3 hours. No, I'll try and keep it brief. I've worked for Smudged Cat Games. Smudged Cat Games is my company. I'm the only employee. We released 2 games, The Adventures of Shaggy and Gateways. I was going to do a bit of... I've worked at a AAA studio for a year, so I was going to do a bit of a comparison of working in a AAA studio as opposed to being an indie developer. I want to say indie developer. I actually work from home, sort of entirely myself. You know, indie developers have got their own offices and things like that. But from my point of view, I think indie development is from that point of view. So I worked at Rare, that was the AAA studio that I worked at for 1 year. It wasn't even quite a year. I just liked it so much that I left after within that year. And since then, I did other non-games software engineering jobs. I basically got completely disillusioned with the games industry. It was what I really wanted to do, but then once I got there I discovered that I didn't really like it very much. So did various other jobs, always worked on games as a hobby in my spare time, worked on various different things. And in 2007 I started making The Adventures of Shaggy using the XNA framework that Microsoft developed. Entered it into the Dream Build Play competition run by Microsoft, and it got one of the top 20 places. Didn't unfortunately get one of the winning prizes, which was a bit of a shame, but it got noticed enough that I managed to secure a publisher, and everything was going quite well with them, with Sarah Online. I was making getting milestone payments for getting to various points in the game. But then they unfortunately got taken over by Activision Blizzard. Thank you, yes. Who decided that they weren't interested in my little game, really. They weren't even interested enough to properly cancel the contract. It took a serious amount of time for them to actually cancel the contract. So I couldn't approach anyone else in the meantime, which left me in limbo for a little while. I eventually found another publisher, had ups and downs with them as well, and eventually released the game on Xbox. Since then, I've self-published, after doing with publishers, the game on PC, like on Steam and other digital distribution platforms. So that's my Twitter account and Facebook there if you want to contact me. So the games I've done, The Adventures of Shaggy, is like a 2D platform. It's a fairly simple mechanic. You run around and collect the gems. Each level is self-contained, it's all in one screen. And the key thing to the game is there's lots of different mechanics throughout the game. So in this one you get two little things at the bottom there, let you change size. One lets you get big and the other one shrinks you down small. There's other levels where you can rotate the level round, where you can do time travel, so you can encounter past echoes of yourself. Some of you swing around in a rope, others change around the jump mechanic. The other game I did was Gateways, which generally gets billed as a 2D version of Portal, which isn't too far off the mark, really. I don't mind people calling it that. It's not a bad game to get compared to, really. It is a bit different. I mean, it's obviously a 2D style. It's more of a sort of 8-bit style. And it's Metroidvania setting as well, so it's set in one large world and you sort of acquire different power-ups as you go along. So the first one you get is this basic gateway gun, which is like the Portal gun. So you put 2 different gateways down and you can walk through one and you'll come out the other. It does expand on the idea a little bit because you get different types of gateway guns, so you get ones that are 2 different sizes. And if you pass through one, you'll get big, coming out the other one, pass through the other way, you'll get small. Some that let you rotate the world round, and then there's a time travel one as well. So I wanted to, I only worked at AAA Studio for a very brief amount of time, but I wanted to cover some of the kind of differences between working in a studio as opposed to being an indie developer, working from home, in case people are interested in becoming indie developers. I mean, one of the main things is the working hours. If you're at a game studio, I'd like to say you would work 9 to 5 hours, but chances are you'll be working much longer hours. That was certainly my experience. There was always some sort of crunch coming up, or some kind of demo, or the publisher coming to visit, that meant you had to work really long hours and get certain features of the game finished. Whereas when you're an indie developer, certainly from my point of view, working from home, doing my own stuff, you can pretty much choose your own hours, which is quite nice, but it does mean you have to motivate yourself sometimes as well. It's very easy when you've got the option not to do what you want, just to sit there and not really do anything. Also, one side of that as well is you have to, if you're the only person in the company that's making the games, then you're the one that has to do everything. If you're not feeling that great, like what happened to me when I released Gateway. I came down with a cold on the day that I was releasing Gateway. It felt absolutely dreadful. But I still had to contact lots of press and deal with support requests and things like that. So it can be a bit of a burden as well. Other thing is the kind of the scope of working on a game. If you're an indie developer, you're generally quite so close to the project. It's your thing. You know, you're creating the world. So you create the majority of the game. It's something you're really passionate about. Whereas being at AAA studio, you're generally working on very large teams. You might even be working on something that you're not particularly interested in. You know, you might be keen on racing games, and you go to a game studio and end up working on a puzzle platformer, which isn't your thing. But you can get to say that you worked on, you know, really big games. I mean, that might be something for you if you really want to say that you worked on Halo 4 or, you know, Battlefield or Call of Duty or something. So you can say that, you know, yeah, I worked on Grand Theft Auto. But then, you know, when your friend asks, oh, what did you do in Grand Theft Auto? Were you responsible for any of the character design or any of the exciting missions? And you have to sort of turn around to them and say, oh no, I spent my time working on that tree. That tree has to look really good. The flip side of that, being an indie developer and being so close to what you're working on, is that it can be quite difficult when the game actually gets released. And there's generally, for every game, you get quite a bit of negative feedback. One of the things with the internet is the anonymity. So I've got a comment here that we posted on the Shuggy Steam forum shortly after the game was released. It says, painful game. This is one of those indie platformers that punishes the smallest mistake. Good lord, this game only brings pain to my world. I can't play more than 20 minutes. This game seems like a nice indie to relax. It turns out completely the opposite. Frustrating beyond recognition. I do feel like I wasted money. The only thing I associate having spent 2 years developing a game, you put a blood, sweat and tears into it, reading something like that can really get you down. I mean, a lot of really positive comments appeared about Shuggy. I mean, it was reviewed in a lot of websites and big publications, which have much more readership than this guy. But for some reason, this kind of thing tends to stick with you if you're so close to the project. And it's the sort of, you need to read about 20 positive comments and cancel out every negative one. This is one of the cleaner comments that I can find. Some of them could be a lot worse as well. So what else? The salary, that's quite a major issue. Indie pay is generally not so good. That's been my experience anyway, as I'll see later. Whereas working at a game studio, you will get paid a regular wage. I mean, you'll be salaried, and you can also get quite good bonuses as well. Not something I've experienced because I wasn't over here long enough to actually get paid any bonuses. I did find, as being a software engineer, I could get paid more. Was what I did. I could get paid more working in a non-games job as well, doing software, as I think as the games industry is so appealing to people. They kind of expect people to work for less pay. I don't know if that counts for artists and producer roles. I can only really speak from a point of view of a software engineer. Working conditions is another good thing. That's what I mean about actually working from home, as opposed to you can't be an indie developer and work in a studio as well. About a general game studio, if you go to work for a company, it'll have normal office conditions, which can be quite nice. You've got people there, you're around people that you're working on the game with. Which I sometimes miss being an indie developer working from home, so you don't have that interaction with people. But on the flip side, an indie developer working from home, you don't need to get dressed in the morning, particularly. If you're just going to roll out of bed and decide, well, I'm just going to do stuff in my pants, then that's fine. No commute as well. I've been an indie developer since 2007, but I have done contract work in between. And when I was doing that work, I had a commute of an hour and a half both ways. So things like that, working from home can be great. So you don't have that commute. Working from home, I suppose, it means you get to see your family as well. I recently have had 2 children. I've got a 2-year-old and an 8-week-old. So this is how I play video games. That's my 2-year-old. Excuse the wallpaper in this as well. We moved into a house about 5 years ago, and we keep meaning to change the wallpaper. It's really old women. But yeah, having a family, having kids recently, it's been really nice to be able to work from home, and then I can sort of be there for them as well. If I can hear things happening in front of them, I can go through. If it's lunchtime, I can go and have lunch with my family. On the flip side, it's sometimes hard to kind of differentiate. If I hear things, if I'm busy working away, and I can hear things really kicking off in front of them, and I hear my wife really struggling, me being the decent chap that I am, want to instinctively go and help. So I've started actually recently writing down the hours that I've been working to make sure that I keep up with actually doing some work. It's so easy to get distracted. So if you haven't put you off becoming an indie developer, what are the things that you do to get started? There's plenty of tools out there if you want to start making something. Unity, XNA, Game Maker. Wouldn't necessarily recommend XNA now, although that's what I use, because Microsoft have stopped supporting it anymore. There is Monogame there to fill a bit of a gap, but to be honest, it would be best using something else like Unity. Try and choose something simple, a simple game to start with. Don't make your first game of World of Warcraft style, massively multiplayer thing, which a lot of people seem to do. I think see AAA games and think, oh yeah, I can do that much better, and don't quite realise the scope of the game. Try and choose a really simple concept, but try and give it a unique twist, so that at least you'll be able to finish the game, but hopefully there'll be something there that will help you stand out from the crowd. One of the important things is finish it as well, which a lot of game developers struggle with. It's far too easy to have a great idea for a game, then you start working on it, and then all of a sudden you have another great idea, so you start working on that and leave that one, think I'll come back to that later. And generally when you work on that one, you think, oh yeah, I've got another great idea for a game, and then you start working on that, and you end up with a load of unfinished projects. I mean, I've personally done that. I've got a hard drive full of projects, some I've spent months on, which has just been a complete waste of time. Just try concentrate on one thing and actually get it finished. And once you're finished, let everyone know, get it out there. Digital distribution now makes it really easy to get your game out there. You just stick it up on your website, you can transport it if you want, make it freeware, and you can direct everyone to it. But you've got to make sure that you tell people. I think there's a misconception that you can release a game and eventually some people will find it and they'll kind of talk about it to the friends, and it will somehow expand and they'll tell more people, and it's kind of viral marketing idea, which in my experience just doesn't really particularly happen. I think most of the viral marketing campaigns you've heard of have probably had a significant boost to actually get started in the first place. So make sure and market your game properly, contact plenty of websites, follow up if you don't get a response from them. Websites get hundreds of emails every day from game developers wanting them to cover their game. So try and do whatever you can to stand out amongst the crowds, and sort of keep at them, don't sort of let the ball drop. Keep emails brief, I would say, if you contact them. Because they get so many emails, don't have a massive block of text, that will just immediately put them off. Just be sure to have a brief description of the game and kind of a link to all the relevant information, so that they can download it if they need, plenty of screenshots and videos and things like that. Don't be afraid to give away copies of the game on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit. Use social media as much as you can, it's really good. Twitter, particularly for indie game developers, seems to be very popular. And yeah, given that I've done quite a few giveaways for my games on Twitter, and it always leads to, you normally say, yeah, retweet this, and so many people will win a copy of the game. And it always leads to people retweeting, and then you'll get a load of new followers, so it will help with any future announcements. Enter the game into competitions. That's how I got started with Shuggy, entering it in the Dreamville Play competition. the people running competitions will be generating their own PR. So if you become one of the winning entries in the competition, you're kind of automatically piggybacking off that PR. If we're alright with time, I was going to cover some of my sales for Shuggy to give an idea. He's not here. So yeah, it's an expected sales graph for video games generally looks like that. You have your big sort of press build up to the launch, and then day one you have a load of sales, and then over time it tails off gradually, sort of tends towards zero. And that's traditionally been how it actually looked. So here was my graph for releasing Shuggy. This is based on sales figures on Steam. So this was my first month of sales, which does follow the graph, but unfortunately the sales figures weren't quite what I was hoping for. Having spent 2 years working on a game, it made about $10,000 in the first month, which isn't great really for 2 years worth of work. So I do remember that first month quite well, because I was a bit down about things. I was working on Gateways as well at the time, so I kind of, when this happened, I kind of thought, well, I'll finish Gateways and release that, and that will probably be finished. But here's what happened kind of over a longer period up until now. You can see it's about all over the place, but it's received many more sales over the course of the year, down to being in bundles and being in sales. I think bundles came about with Humble Indie Bundle. They seem to start it, which is bundling all the games together and selling it for a pay what you want price. But there's a certain you can pay so much and get some games that only unlock if you pay that price. So yeah, there's quite a few of these have appeared. So you can see there's the Steam Daily Deal was the very first one. So it made $10,000 on that one day, which is all that it made in the first month, basically because it was being promoted on the front page. Indie Royale bundle was the first bundle that Shuggy appeared in after that. It was $8,000, wasn't too bad. It was in the Halloween Steam sale. I did also release new levels for the game when it came up to Halloween, because Shuggy is quite themed around Halloween. And I did wonder at the time how much difference adding the new levels actually made, or whether it was just that it was part of the Steam sale. And I think the most recent Halloween Steam sale figures probably answers that question, and that there wasn't really much difference between the two sales prices. So I think those levels that I added didn't really make any difference at all. But it's been nice after that initial launch when I thought that it was all over and that was the end of it. There's been this kind of longer thing, even a year after the game's released, it's still appearing in a few bundles. It's actually in one just now called the Flying Bundle, which isn't a particularly popular one, but it's so near the end of the lifespan that not bothered, yeah, I'm happy to put it in any kind of bundle. so it's nice to see these figures, but it does make me wonder how these have affected the initial sales of the game. I mean, I did see plenty of comments when the game launched saying that, oh, it looks quite good, but I'll just wait until it appears in the bundle or see the sales, because I know it will at some point. And I think these, the bundles and the sales have led to this kind of race to the bottom, where digital distribution has helped fuel this indie boom, but it's also helping to bring the prices of everything down. I think that it's probably more noticeable in the mobile market, where I think people just aren't prepared to pay any money for games. I think as a consumer, you'll see a game that's been reduced and it's down at 20 cents, and the consumer sees this and buys it and thinks, oh, this is great. It's a great game. This is what 20 cents worth will buy me for a game. So then they look at something that's $1.50. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay for that. So it's kind of leading everyone to getting cheaper and cheaper, which is a bit of a shame. It's the fact that digital distribution, it doesn't cost anything to produce a copy of your game. But there's no reason why you couldn't sell it for a cent, and you might probably see quite a lot of sales. I imagine that's probably going to happen at some point in the near future. You'll see games on sale for a cent somewhere. So that was the sales graph for Shuggy. This is kind of my overall sales that I've had. I've been an indie developer for 6 years, but I've worked probably a year sort of on and off doing contract work. So the sales figure for XBLA was it's a bit hard to judge, because I had a publisher for that. Oh, well, 2 publishers. And there were various outlays for the game as well. So that figure's a little bit of a guess, to be honest. Xbox Live Indie Games, I don't know if any of you are aware of that. I released gateways on there, along with a few other games that I've worked on in the meantime, which hasn't really provided much of a return. I think this also suffers from this problem of driving the price down as low as it can. A game on Xbox Live Indie Games can be $1, $3, $5, but basically anything other than a $1 game just doesn't sell. Steam has been by far the biggest earner for me in Shuggy Gateways, making $77,000. I was surprised to see my own website actually provides a reasonable amount of revenue, 4.5, over the whole course of the time. Good Old Games is another one that's difficult to judge. Well, I mean, it's difficult to judge, that figure is correct, but Shuggy Gateways have only just launched on Good Old Games, and they were launched as part of that promotion, containing Good Old Games Super 5 promo. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how that happens over time, if they're any sort of rival to Steam, or if there's no one to topple Steam at all. Amazon, despite the big name, not exactly a great return. They're only just getting into digital distribution of games, really. But they're at least better than Dazura and Online, which is absolutely nothing. Which is a bit of a shame. I think part of the problem with, because I think Dazura is a nice service, I think part of it was that the game is also available on Steam. So people will generally prefer to go for a game on Steam. I wouldn't look on that as, yeah, just don't touch Dazura. I think Dazura can be reasonable enough for games. And a reasonable different bundles for Shuggy. And I also got 5,000 for being Dreambuild Play. Gateways was also in Dreambuild Play. And thankfully did get one of the top prizes. It was the lowest of the top prizes, but it was still one of the prizes. $5,000. So in total, over the 6 years been in the world here, I've received $162,000, which sounds great. All these figures are after the host taking the percentage, which is pretty much always 30%. But I do work with artists who do all the artwork for the game, and they work in a royalty percentage as well. So they get 30%. So after they have 30%, that's down at $113,000, which is £70,000. I don't know how that compares to euros. I think euros is slightly more. So given that I've been an indie developer for 5 years, I've made £70,000 total. I worked out as an indie salary of $14,000, which isn't brilliant. It's better than the minimum wage, which is quite nice. The most depressing thing about this is I worked this out last year, and my indie salary was $15,000. So that was a bit disheartening, because I thought last year had gone quite well. But evidently not. So these are figures that what I reckon I probably could make if I did other things. So if I worked at a non-games company, I reckon I could earn about $44,000. This is based on the company that I did some contract work for. They offered me a full-time job. The figure for the games studio is just sort of based on generally that being a little bit less. Normally for games development, you don't get quite as much. So yeah, I mean, I spend quite a bit of time looking at this, thinking, sort of comparing that indie salary with the non-game software salary, and wondering if I want to carry on. I think at the moment I'm so happy to be working from home and be able to see my family and work on the games that I absolutely love, that I'd really like to be able to continue doing it. Hopefully this will change as well. Gateways is due to appear in a bundle very soon, which will hopefully adjust that. It hasn't been in a bundle yet at all. So with a bit of luck, that figure will improve. So I suspect I'm probably done. So yes, well that's the end of my talk. Hopefully there's been something there of some kind of interest. If anyone's thinking of becoming an indie developer, then I wish you the best of luck.